Initially, I had big dreams of a big maple syrup operation with an evaporator and reverse osmosis. Customers lined up at the door, Maple Sunday, etc. And with everything else I had going on in my life, and with so much antiquated equipment and the competition, the niche was already pretty much filled, and it just wasn't worth time and effort and money to really get into making maple syrup. However, we still like maple syrup, so even though I sold my evaporator, I kept just enough of the stuff so I could make our own. And I'm just going to show you in a few quick steps how you can make maple syrup in your own backyard or in your kitchen. They say curiosity killed the cat. Well, it also can kill cows. So you want to make sure that wherever you're working, if you have cows, that you don't have anything they can eat that's going to be detrimental to their health. These are just regular plastic tubing cutters. You can get by with a knife, but these are relatively cheap. So if you do much of this, these are a good investment. This tubing is available at most hardware stores this time of year. You'll find it on a shelf somewhere, and Tractor Supply has it. And it's a lot easier if you don't have a cow helping you out. And even though he's good company, he isn't really exactly the kind of help that you want. There's a couple different kind of taps we use. There's these ones. These have a check valve in them. And I don't know if you can see that little black ball. When the atmosphere changes, the ball valve will close during the night and open during the day. So you want to start with a good square cut on the end. There's a couple ways you can put the tap on the tubing, and one is you can kind of heat the tubing up a little bit and squish it on. The other is if you have a tool like this, and these aren't exactly cheap, but if you're doing a lot of them, they're a real labor saver. So on one side, you'll clamp this down. See, it has like little pairs of vice grips on it. And so one side will clamp this, and then I can use the other side to push that fitting on. And there's all kinds of fittings you can get for these. There's T's, there's Y's, and you want to go real slow with constant pressure, or you'll just fold the tubing over and then you'll have to cut it off and start over. And so that'll slide right on. So right now I'm just building some short pieces of tubing with a tap on the end, and then I'm going to put them into a bucket. I started out using these bigger taps, and actually before that I was using 5/16 line, and the tap itself, I don't remember if it used a 5/8 drill bit or a 3/4, but when you go to the 3/16 here, you can really get down smaller. And if you do choose to have a cow help you, make sure that you have nothing that's gonna be detrimental to their survival, like metal. Cows like to taste everything, kind of like little kids, and the last thing you want to do is for a cow to ingest a piece of metal. So the advantage of doing it with these is you only have to make them once. It's basically a one-time investment, although these things do get brittle with age, and if you're not careful when you remove them from the tree, they will break. When I was little, we mostly used a brace and bit to drill all the holes, and we used metal buckets. Some of them had plastic covers on them, and some had the little triangle roofs on them. We're just going to tap some trees and put them in these 3.5 gallon buckets. Got lids. I'm going to drill some holes in the lids for the sap lines to go in, and the reason we're going to use lids is because it'll keep all the foreign material out. When the temperatures warm up like this, even though you don't see them, you'll get flies and sometimes leaves will blow around, and you want to keep that sap as clean as possible. These 3.5 gallon jugs are actually pretty good because they're easy to carry around, and in particular, just make sure you get a good hood on it or a cover, because you just want to keep that foreign material out. Now, the easiest way to determine where your maple trees are, if you don't already know, is to tag them in the summertime when you've still got leaves on them. If that's not possible, a telltale sign of a maple tree is that they will always have these white splotches on them. Now, personally, I typically want to tap the tree somewhere near a big branch like this. That'll just give you a better opportunity to get more sap. Fortunately, this big limb is also on the southwest side. So you can measure out the distance of the shaft of the spile and then put a corresponding piece of tape on your drill bit, and that way you don't over drill. Now if you look here, you'll see there's actually 3 trees, so I'm going to put 3 taps, and yes, you could put considerably more. One question people often ask is, does it hurt the tree? And yes and no. It's pretty much equivalent to going and having your blood drawn. A little bit doesn't bother you, but you don't want to bleed out. When you drill into the tree, you want to kind of drill uphill a little bit so the sap will run downhill. And then I want to go in as far as my yellow tape. And you want to use the drill to clean it out. You really don't want to blow on it because that'll just introduce bacteria into the tree. So you can get all kinds of T's and Y's and junctions, but it's actually cheaper just to run 3 straight home runs of sapline. And if you're using 5-gallon buckets, you just want to find a good level spot where they're not going to tip over, because once they fill up they will get heavy, and typically you want to get them in a decent spot in the snow to help keep it refrigerated. Once the sap comes out of the tree, it has a lifespan of about a week, and so you want to make sure that you either use it or get rid of it before the week terminates. Otherwise it's just spoiled and it'll ruin the taste of your maple syrup.